What's up guys, Andy here from 4K Downtime, here to bring you another video. Today it's going to be quite a special video because I want to say happy birthday to a certain console that officially turned 1 year old today, and that's the Nintendo Switch. So same time last year is when Nintendo launched the Nintendo Switch, so today I just want to spend some time to talk about the actual 1 year review, I guess you could say. Just like, you know, there's already been a lot of those to the people that I'm subscribed to, so I guess I'm just really adding to it. So let's just go through like everything from last year to from the consoles been announced to it being launched, and then obviously the games that came out. Now I'm not going to talk about all the games, I'm just gonna talk about some of the highlights. So we'll begin obviously with, back then it's still called the NX, and that it was reported that it was going to use cartridges, but of course during that time a lot of people was kind of like, what do they mean, like, you know, you're going to use cartridges? Like, many people thought Nintendo was like, you know, crazy, or like, you know, the fact that it was just a rumor and that it would never be. But look at where we are now. So the console is indeed using cartridges. Might not be the like the most popular thing to use, because as we can already tell with like certain games, it's like, yeah, some people are just, some developers should I say, it's just rather like, you know, even when they're trying to sell you like, you know, a collection of games, they still, like, you know, would only give you one and then, like, you know, have you to download the other one. So despite obviously using cart, because like, again, their prices varies, depends on their capacity, so yeah, so it got a bit of it made certain, like, you know, people unhappy, especially for those who want physical. But aside from that, I like the idea. I just felt like I could see like the annoyance of it, like, you know, why people will probably just be like, oh, you know what, I'm not too sure about buying a collection where, like, you know, half of it is actually downloadable. So hopefully Nintendo could work something out. Like, I'm not sure if they could make the cost cheaper, just so more developers would be able to, like, yeah, alright, you know what, it's cheap enough for us to put the full game in there, let us do it. But I'm not going to delve into that too long. But fast forward, we finally got the first announcement trailer of the console itself, and to this day I still stand by that. It's one of the greatest launch trailers for a console. It's just within 2.5, I believe that original trailer was about 2.5 minutes. It showed everything we needed to know, like how the console works, the name of the console. They shoved it in our faces, like, you know, multiple times with that click sound and the logo, and of course showing people that you could play it anywhere, like how easy it is just to, like, take the console out and how you have the same exact experience. And ultimately I just thought that trailer was great. Like, it just, again, tells you everything that you needed to know, how it works and everything like that, how convenient it is. And it was just a great trailer all around. Now, of course, then fast forward a little bit, which is where Nintendo in January did the major event where they detailed obviously how the console actually functions, how it works, like, you know, how the Joy-Con works and everything like that. And then show us more of the actual games. Like, you know, of course, like, you know, the games ultimately is basically the heart and soul of any console. It's like, if the games are great, your console would sell. If the games aren't there, then it doesn't really matter how juicy you made your console. It doesn't really change anything. So during that time, of course, this event, yeah, was kind of hit and miss with a lot of people. Like, you know, there are people who liked it, and then there are people who didn't. And the people who didn't like it was primarily kind of thinking that the Switch was going to be just yet another Wii U. It's focusing on gimmicks rather than anything. It doesn't seem like it has a lot of third-party support, which I do admit in that very first event that Nintendo did in January. All we saw was, once again, like, you know, Nintendo obviously having all of their major hitters and everything like that, with Splatoon 2, Mario Kart, Mario Odyssey, Xenoblade Chronicles, and of course Breath of the Wild as well. But that was never really the Wii U's problem. Is like the Wii U had all of Nintendo's, like, you know, full exclusives as well. The biggest problem here was that it lacks third-party support, and this event didn't really boost confidence in a lot of gamers that Nintendo was going to get more third-party. And I think during that time it was also purely just because maybe a lot of third-party developers wasn't sure whether or not the console was going to be a success, so they were very skeptical about it. I mean, Bethesda supported with Skyrim, and we saw obviously a few old ports as well. Like probably the only major, I guess you can say, third-party game that was available on the Switch along with every other version was pretty much EA with FIFA, but that was pretty much about it. So yeah, so that's why I can understand that if some people wasn't convinced, especially during that event. But then again, you fast forward a little bit, then the console finally comes out, and once again that's been criticized as well, because in terms of launch games wise, I would argue that if you didn't buy it for Zelda, there was practically no reason to pick it up. I mean, I picked it up day one because I just wanted to play Breath of the Wild. Even if it just launched with that game, I would have bought it, but just because it just so happened that the game was bloody amazing. I just loved it. But in terms of, aside from Zelda, you've only really got 1-2 Switch, Bomberman, and like some, like I said, old ports. It did have some pretty solid indie games like Fast RMX and the other, what was it again? There was Shovel Knight Treasure Trove on it as well. So there was some good indie games, but it's just in terms of actual games, there really wasn't much there at launch. So, but despite that, like, the launch was still very successful. Of course, then fast forward a little bit more, we got Mario Kart 8, and then, like, soon followed after that they had ARMS, followed by Splatoon 2 as well. So in terms of games afterwards, I would say, like, once Mario Kart 8 hit the scene, pretty much every month there was at least, like, either a major Nintendo exclusive, or there were, like, some other third-party game that fill in the gaps, and it wasn't bad at all. Like, a lot of these games end up selling very well. Of course, like, Breath of the Wild sold well, we all know that. Like Mario Kart 8, despite being a port and being sold at, over here it was sold at 50 quid, so like it probably would be like $60 over in the States. But still, like, it sold really well. Of course, Capcom announced Ultra Street Fighter 2, which got really mixed receptions as well. Like, some people, like me, I enjoyed it, but some people felt like it was way too overpriced, especially considering that it's a very, very old game. Sure, it has the HD treatment, but that was pretty much about it. And of course, what kind of is rubbing people the wrong way even more now is, like, for people like me who has purchased it only to realize that the 30th anniversary is going to come with 12 games, and it's probably going to be sold at the same price as well, so damn. But anyway, like, Capcom consider Ultra Street Fighter 2 a big success as well. As far as I know, I think Konami, like, also were happy with the sales of Super Bomberman R, and we all have been shitting on Konami recently, and yes, I understand the whole fiasco with Metal Gear Survive, but as far as Bomberman goes, I'll give credit where credit is due. I felt like they did a pretty good job at supporting the game, especially, like, everything they've done up until this point were for free, so at least I could give them a little credit for that, a little bit. But that, and then of course, like, following Splatoon 2's release as well, we also got other games like, again, some pretty decent third-party games like Sonic Mania, well, indie games technically, I guess you could say. And then with the arrival of, like, Super Mario Odyssey in towards the end of the year as well, and then finally we finished it with Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I felt like 2017 has been a great year for the Switch. In terms of first-party games, it was amazing. Like, there was pretty much one game for every kind of genre that you're into, whether if it's fighting game, like, driving, action adventure, platformer, RPGs. It had at least one game in every category, in my opinion. Especially, forgot to mention as well, Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Like, that game was also amazing. So in terms of exclusive, the Switch had a fantastic year in 2017. Third party was kind of like, for indie wise, it was amazing. Like, it got a lot of indie games and everything like that, but in terms of just major third party support, a lot of them were ports. like there's no denying that. Like many of them were just ports of old games. The most recent one being obviously Doom, that was released in 2017, but even that, it's still considered an old game. Of course, like by the time it came out, it was literally like 10 quid on every other system. But then again, what could you do? It just came out late. And of course, the same thing will be happening with Wolfenstein 2. Of course, like again, it came out last year, but the new one for Switch this time is we still don't even know when is it coming out. The only thing we know yet is just like it's this year. I would have expected this to be launched by now, but unfortunately not. So my guess is probably somewhere in summer. But that's pretty much like it. As far as third party goes, yeah, there just wasn't really a lot for Switch. So that's why I wouldn't say that Nintendo has completely won over third party developers. However, one thing I do want to add here is that, considering how well the Switch have sold up until this point, I think it's becoming harder and harder for third parties to ignore them. And I think that if third parties can't make some of their games be on the Switch, like let's say if Activision couldn't get COD, like there are rumors that the next COD is coming onto here, but let's just say if they couldn't get it on there, or if certain games that was too graphically demanding that they can't get it running on the Switch, that I can understand. But I think that will open, with the Switch's sales right now, it probably would at least open them up here to maybe we could work some, like do some exclusive titles for the Switch, just much like what Ubisoft did with Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. So if they could do something similar like that, and then put it exclusively on the Switch, and if it's well made, because at the end of the day, yeah, what we don't really want when it comes to third party games is just, especially when it's on the Nintendo console, it's just that we just want it to be like, you know, optimized to run on the console, like, you know, properly. Like if you can't get it to run at, like, let's say 60 FPS whatsoever, like with Doom for example, like Doom runs 60 at all the other consoles, but on the Switch it runs at 30. It doesn't look as good as like or as pretty as, like, you know, the other versions, but at the very least Panic Button, like, you know, did like a very good job at just, like, you know, optimizing it enough, like, you know, so it's actually playable on this platform. It's not like it's unplayable, that the frame rate is, like, you know, so like, you know, choppy to the point yet that you actually can't play it. It's perfectly playable, it's just not as smooth as the other console counterparts, but like people who buy it could accept that the fact that it's just not as powerful of, like, you know, sacrifices has to be made. Yeah, so as long as it's a competent port, I think people will be willing to buy it. Or if you think it's too demanding that you simply can't get it on this console, at least be more like Ubisoft and then just like make an exclusive games just for this platform alone, because if you make a great game, ultimately it's going to sell. So hopefully this year, with Nintendo not having, I guess, as much exclusive as they did last year. Now granted, we still don't really know all the Nintendo exclusive that is coming out this year. The only ones we know so far is just the fact that Kirby, Yoshi, and of course Fire Emblem is coming out. But the others, especially the main big three, be Metroid Prime 4, Pokemon, and also, yes, Bayonetta 3 as well. These three games, I have a feeling that if one of them were to come out, it probably will be Pokemon, but even that, I'm just not entirely sure. I'm sure, like, you know, we'll see all three of them, hopefully at E3 this year, but I doubt all three of them are coming out this year. Maybe one, but like, you know, Prime 4, I just got this really strong feeling that it's not coming this year. And Bayonetta 3, despite Nintendo wanted to push Bayonetta, like, you know, as much as possible, like, you know, with the re-release obviously of Bayonetta 2 and 1 early this month, I just felt like it's just not ready, unless they've been working on it, like, you know, time ago, and then even before when they announced it at the Game Awards. I don't think it's coming out this year, especially if it was only started development around that time. Then there's no way Platinum will be able to get it out this year. But there's still other things we don't know. We don't know what Retro Studios is working on. Perhaps their game would come out this year. But I felt like, you know, as time goes by, we'll learn more about what exclusive they've got. But because Nintendo hasn't got as much exclusive this year. Again, just me assuming. I felt like this year will be the perfect time for third party to jump on, especially if you want your games to really sell on the Switch. Yeah, this year might actually be better, because compared to last year, there were just simply too many like major hitters that was coming out month after month, but now it's a bit more spaced out. So hopefully, like, you know, third party will be able to find better success on Nintendo's platform this year. At least I hope so. But yeah, that pretty much conclude, like, you know, my thoughts on the year one of the Switch, what my overall thoughts are and everything. Actually, I would like to just add one more thing. Of course, the major blunder I guess I can give Nintendo last year, as far as, like, you know, with the Switch, is not really has anything to do with the Switch, but more have to do with their mobile app. It's just not. It wasn't very good, so I hope what Nintendo has been doing is trying to fine-tune something, because at the end of the day, yeah, I know sometimes Nintendo do want to be different, but sometimes being different can be a good thing and a bad thing. And when it comes to online, I felt like Nintendo being different is more of a bad thing. Like, that app just wasn't very good, like the way how voice chat is handled. Not a real big fan, so hopefully they've worked on it since then and like tried to improve it. Just like, this is literally one thing I personally think Nintendo, you guys could just be like everybody else. There's no need to try and be different, just be like everybody else, and I think you would be fine. Like, at the very least, I think so as well. But yeah, that's pretty much my overall thoughts of Nintendo at year one. I wish they have a fantastic, like, you know, second year. Hopefully you get to see more great games from them, more announcements. I'm really hyped to see what Nintendo will bring this year at E3. Hopefully, now that we've seen that it's already been a year now, hopefully it wouldn't take them that long to announce maybe a direct, like, you know, just tell us a little bit more about what you guys have planned, of course, for the rest of the year. I don't expect them to talk about any of the major titles, but at the very least, maybe just like detail some of the third-party games, maybe that has already been confirmed that it's coming, but we don't know about, and that's what I'm hoping for. Like, hopefully just a direct soon, and then followed by E3, where they will just show us everything, like literally everything that you've got, have planned at the moment going forward. But anyway, I would like to hear what you think, so comment below and let me know what you felt about Nintendo's first year. Did you thought they did great? Did you thought they did bad? Like, you know, just let's have a chat. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, really appreciate it. If you like this video, consider subscribing and give it a like. If not, dislike. And I'll be seeing you next time. Have a good one, guys. Take care.